seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down, till we listen to the voice of God. Till we listen to the voice of God. It seems that we will gain autonomy, but by our striving to be separate. And that our independence from the rest of God's creation is the way in which salvation is obtained. Yet all we find is sickness, suffering, and loss and death. This is not what our Father wills for us, nor is there any second to His will. To join with His is but to find our own. And since our will is His, it is to Him that we must go to recognize our will. Choose the second place to gain the first. What seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down, until we listen to the voice of God. Until we listen to the voice of God. There is no will but yours, and I am glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace, and happily I share that will which you, my Father, gave as part of me. I choose the second place to gain the first. What seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down, until we listen to the voice of God. Until we listen to the voice of God. Lesson 328. I choose the second place to gain the first. Now, I was thinking that I was going to talk about a few different things and weave them all together today because they're all related. Actually, everything is related in reality, but I'm going to try to talk about a few different things and bring in lesson 326 again. So we're on lesson 328, but I'm going to talk about lesson 326, which I talked about the other day. And then I'm also going to talk about, on another video, I'm going to talk about Ernest Holmes and how this also, what we're talking about here, applies to talking about Ernest Holmes. And I did a video about Ernest Holmes the other day. He's the guy that wrote The Science of Mind. It's a New Thought classic. And some people say that ACIM is a New Thought classic, although in a way ACIM does not belong to any genre. But so here we go. Lesson 328. I choose the second place to gain the first. Paragraph 1. What seems to be the second place is first, for all things we perceive are upside down until we listen to the voice for God. It seems that we will gain autonomy, but by our striving to be separate, and that our independence from the rest of God's creation is the way in which salvation is obtained. Yet, all we find is sickness, suffering, and loss and death. This is not what our Father wills for us, nor is there any second to his will. To join with his is but to find our own. And since our will is his, it is to him that we must go to recognize our will. Paragraph 2. There is no will but yours, and I am glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace. And happily I share that will, which you, my Father, gave as part of me. All right, and we're going to talk about it now. Go through it a little slower, and we're going to talk about it in relationship to this other lesson that we had the other day, which was very interesting. So, all right. Now, first of all, this is a very interesting statement. I choose the second place to gain the first. Remember in the Gospels, Jesus is said to have said, the first will be last and the last will be first, right? So this seems to be hearkening back to that idea. And remember the idea, which is actually was first in the Hebrew Bible before it was in the New Testament. The stone that the builders rejected became the cornerstone. So I choose the second place to gain the first. And remember, we had this lesson, I am forever an effect of God. We're going to talk about that in a second, okay? So, paragraph 1, what seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down until we listen to the voice for God. Now, what does Jesus mean by that? You know, that it sounds good, but what does he really mean? The second place, from our perspective, the second place is God's place, right? Because this world is upside down. We have basically rejected God. You know, this world is testifying really to the rejection of reality. That's, you know, what Jesus tells us in the text. He says, you know, that the body and the world were made as a place to keep God out, right? To hide from God, to deny God. So the second, you know, what we think is really secondary, which is God's reality, is really the first. And this reality is secondary. And everything that we perceive in this world is secondary. But we think we make it top priority for ourselves because we think it's real. But the voice for God, which is the Holy Spirit, tells us otherwise. The Holy Spirit just softly reminds us, this is not your home. This is not reality. This is not what it is. And you know this, right? You already, in your heart of hearts, you know that's the truth. It seems that we will gain autonomy, but by our striving to be separate. So that word "but" here is interesting. Again, it's that archaic form of "but," right? That we will gain autonomy only by our, right? But here means only by our striving to be separate, and that our independence from the rest of God's creation is the way in which salvation is obtained. So we think that somehow we can be saved through being separate, right? Somehow this world is going to bring us happiness. This world is going to bring us peace. Meaning in our separation, in our separate self, that somehow we're going to find peace, that we're going to find joy, we're going to find happiness. And then Jesus says, yet all we find is sickness, suffering, and loss and death. This is not what our Father wills for us, nor is there any second to his will. So there is really no second will. There is no free will, right? There is no other will. And it's not even a question of is there free will. There is no other will. There's only one will, right? And there's really only one choice, even though Jesus also says, for our sake, because this is what we need to understand what he's saying. He says there are two choices, right? There's two voices and there's two choices. There's the voice of the Holy Spirit and there's the voice of the ego. But in reality, the ego does not exist, so it's not even a choice, right? Because you can't. A nothing choice is not a choice, right? so that's just another way of saying that there's only one choice, there's only one voice, there's only one will. If we follow anything else, we're following nothingness. We're following a complete illusion. This is not what our Father wills for us, nor is there any second to his will. To join with his is but to find our own. Right? I choose the second place to gain the first. So in this world, God's will is second, right? My will is first. But now we're saying I choose God's will, right? Because really God's will is my will. Second and first are the same, right? There's only one will. To join with his is but to find our own. And since our will is his, it is to him that we must go to recognize our will. All right. And then paragraph 2, there is no will but yours. This is now a prayer to God the Father. This is speaking directly to God. And I am glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace. And I can't have that in separation, right? I cannot have that eternal peace and that eternal joy in a place of separation. It's not possible. And separation itself is not possible. That's the funny thing, is that separation is completely illusory. It's not possible. It didn't happen, right? That's the atonement principle, is that separation never happened. We are not separate now. We have never been separate, even though that's what it appears that we are. but we really are not. That's the mind. If you really think about that, if you really sit with that, it is actually mind blowing. But who sits with that? Who really thinks about that? There is no will but yours, and I'm glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace. And happily I share that will, which you, my Father, gave as part of me. So, now we're going to talk about this in relationship to this other lesson that I never really completed, because I kind of had an agenda with lesson 326, which I think is one of the most interesting lessons, and one of the most challenging and one of the most controversial of all the lessons. I am forever an effect of God, capital E for effect, right? And my point in when I was talking about that the other day, I was trying to say that some people use this lesson as a way to say, see, the Course is not non-dualistic because it's saying, I am forever separate from God, right? I am not one with God. It says it right here in the Course. There's a lesson that says, I am forever an effect of God. But then I pointed out this one sentence in which Jesus kind of pulls the rug out, right? Where he pulls the rug out on this lesson, right? He says, and all your attributes abide in me, because it is your will to have a son so like his cause that cause and its effect are indistinguishable. And think about it, if there is no time, there is no space in reality, right? Time and space are concepts. Time and space are constructs. time and space are part of the ego mind, right? That the ego mind is set up to think in terms of time and space because time and space equal separation, right? But if there is no time and space, there's no cause and effect, right? How can there be a cause and effect if there's no time and space, right? Because cause and effect imply spatio-temporal reality, and there can't be that if time and space are unreal. So Jesus is trying to remind us. I think it's kind of a humorous. I think it's a little bit humorous here that he's saying, I am forever an effect of God, but cause and effect are not separate, they're one, which means I am forever a cause of God. I mean, you could put it that way as well, because in reality, there's no, he says it right here, there is no, they're indistinguishable. You cannot distinguish between cause and effect. Ultimately, you cannot distinguish, to put it in other terms, you cannot distinguish between Father and Son, ultimately, right? They are not distinguishable. That's what this seems to be saying. I'm not saying it's exact, tell me I'm wrong. Bring it on. Tell me if you think I'm mistaken in what I'm saying here, please let me know. But what I really wanted to talk about here is the other part of this, which is, so why does he have this lesson that says, I am forever an effect of God? What would be the point? If his point is to say that cause and effect are indistinguishable, why does he even have the lesson, right? That's the next question you have to ask is, why even have this lesson? And the reason, I think, is what Jesus has been harping on since the beginning, which is this idea of the authority problem, right? That we think that we are self-created, that we created ourselves, that we are autonomous, we are separate, we are autonomous, self-created. We don't need God, right? And the Course is trying to say that's a problem, right? That you think that you created yourself. No, God the Father created you like God's self. And God the Father is only love. If only love created you, then you are only love. Right? Now, you might say, well, all right, that sounds pretty dualistic, right? But keep in mind that what Jesus is trying to help us to do is to correct the idea that something other than perfect love created us, right? If only perfect love created us and we are just like that perfect love, then suffering, sickness, death, pain and suffering, etc., do not exist in reality, right? They are not really what we are. That's the correction. Once we have the correction, we can start to correct our perception. But we need to take steps. In other words, we need to take baby steps. Jesus can't just come along and, it's not helpful really for him just to say, you are one with God. That's it, baby. Right? Only love is real. That's all you need, right? The Course is the Course because it's leading us step by step, right? And people, I'm kind of, in a way, giving away the game by just trying to give the deeper message of the Course, but everyone takes this at their own pace. If you're listening to this video, you're probably ready for the deeper message of the Course. Not everyone is, and they probably wouldn't listen to the video, right? They wouldn't be showing up listening to the video. Or even if they did listen to the video, they might not understand what I'm saying, and so it wouldn't even make sense, But if this is making sense to you, then you're ready and you're going. This is where you're going, right? You're going to this deeper understanding here. So why, again, just to put it very simply, why does Jesus say, I am forever an effect of God? Why does he need to say that? If cause and effect are indistinguishable in reality, why would he say, I am forever an effect of God? The point is to make it very clear that I am God's creation, and I am a loving creation of a loving creator. And not only is my creator loving, but my creator is perfectly loving. Perfect love. That is what I am. I am not anything other than that in reality. And if I accept anything less than that, then I am accepting something that I am not. In other words, I'm holding on to illusion, right? I'm clinging to illusion. I hope this is making sense. What, bud? All right, give me a second, bud. All right, give me 1 second, bud. I'm almost done here. I hope this made sense. Please let me know. This is a little bit challenging. Maybe not. Maybe it's very simple. You tell me. Is this making sense? Is it is it challenging, or is it crystal clear and simple but not easy? Right. I think that's what it is. It's very simple, but it ain't easy. Right. It ain't easy getting over on your brother. Do a very short version. I choose the second place to gain the first. What seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down. Till we listen to the voice for God. Till we listen to the voice for God. Father, there is no will but yours. And I am glad that nothing I imagine contradicts what you would have me be. It is your will that I be wholly safe, eternally at peace, and happily I share that will which you, my Father, gave as part of me. I choose the second place to gain the first. What seems to be the second place is first. For all things we perceive are upside down. Until we listen to the voice for God. Until we listen to the voice for God. And by the way, a life without a cause is a life without effect. Just remember that. And I'll see you very soon. Rock on.